Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the channel. If you're new, welcome back. If you aren't, I'm EDJ, and we are in the final episode of Extra Histories. Genghis Khan series. We're fighting. Last time we just saw him basically his empire just expand. The Mongols. He basically found them. Nomadic tribes have united them, and now they're like growing in so powerfully, not only in terms of military, but in culture with the expansion of like their riches, and in terms of like arts and language and writing is just evolving so quickly. Last time he tried making allies with a sultan. The sultan basically killed his envoys, and now we'll just see the final years and just how this man's life ends. So, yeah, overall, very smart, interesting man. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this all ends. Link to this video down below. Without any further ado, let us watch the final conquering years of Genghis Khan.
Well into his middle age, and with a mighty empire under his control, Genghis Khan's thoughts linger on what will happen to that empire after he dies. What will become of his family? What will become of the world he has worked so hard to shape? The 13th century. The Muslim lands of the Khwarezm Empire were the richest and most sophisticated in the world. Its citizens soared above their contemporaries in Europe, India, and China in astronomy, mathematics, agronomy, and many other fields. But because they stood higher, they had the furthest to fall. 100,000 Mongol horsemen stormed the Khwarezm cities. The Sultan of Khwarezm had 4 times as many soldiers, but the Mongol forces were terrifying, and they honored their promise of clemency to all who surrendered as strictly as they honored their promise of destruction to all who resisted. Cities fell one after another. Many surrendered without a fight. Others held out for a few days or weeks before falling. After defeating each city, Genghis Khan sent clerks to divide the civilian population by profession, including doctors, astronomers, judges, engineers, teachers, artisans, and religious leaders. They especially sought out people who spoke multiple languages. Despite all of their growth, wealth, and power, the Mongols still practiced no crafts themselves other than war, herding, and hunting. All of the skilled work done in their growing empire was done by the people they conquered. They needed teachers as much as they needed riches. But one group in particular could expect no mercy from the Mongol forces. That group being the wealthy and the powerful. Under the chivalrous rules of warfare as practiced in Europe and the Middle East during the Crusades, aristocrats were protected and kept as hostages to be ransomed. The Mongols had no use for such pleasantries. To prevent future wars, they sought out and eliminated any enemy aristocrats they could find. Aristocrats offered nothing of value to the Mongols, and were the most likely to resist them successfully in the future. By eliminating the aristocracy, they decapitated the social system of their enemies. As the 1220s rolled in, Genghis Khan was in his 60s, at the height of his power, with nothing and no one standing in his way. But despite his overwhelming success as a conqueror, he was really struggling as a father. Custom held that each son in a herding family inherited some of their family's herd. Genghis Khan intended to instead offer each son a piece of his empire. However, he also needed to choose one son to be the next great Khan after he...
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the best idea. I'm already imagining civil wars. I don't know. The Mongol Empire goes on to be the largest landmass empire, so maybe not, but I don't know. It just seems like a lot, right? Here, have this part of my empire, have all that. I guess we'll see how it goes. This doesn't sound that great to me, though.
He died. He summoned a family Kurultai to discuss the matter. His 2 eldest sons, Jochi and Chagatai, were tense and terse with one another. Ogadai, his 3rd son, arrived to the meeting slightly late and also slightly inebriated. Genghis Khan asked his eldest son, Jochi, to speak first on the matter of succession. In doing so, he emphasized Jochi's rank as his eldest son, implying he was the likely successor. Chagatai did not agree, and interrupted before Jochi could answer. Jochi lunged at his brother, and the 2 men started to fist fight. Genghis Khan broke up the fight and tearfully pleaded with his sons, begging them to understand how different things were before they were born, when nobody was safe. He ordered them to respect each other, but he knew that he could not impose a choice on them that would last after his death. They would have to find a compromise. After much discussion, the family decided that neither Chagatai nor Jochi should become their father's heir, but instead agreed that the role of successor should go to their mellow, good-natured, and hard-drinking brother Ogedei. Genghis Khan then allotted his personal lands and herds to each son and separated Jochi and Chagatai, giving them kingdoms at far opposite ends of his territory. This ordeal cast a pall over the remainder of the campaign. Genghis Khan was now keenly aware of how much work he needed to do to preserve the empire after his death. He had been so dogged in his pursuit of empire and unification that he'd neglected his family. He put much effort into trying to mend the relationship between his eldest sons. He assigned them jointly to a campaign, but neither brother could agree on what tactics to use, and because of their bickering, the campaign stretched on for 6 months, an unprecedented amount of time for a Mongol siege. Eventually, they had no choice but to burn the city to the ground and flood it, destroying it utterly and leaving nothing to loot. In 1222, the Mongol conquest reached the city of Multan in modern-day Pakistan. Genghis Khan had set his sights on northern India, the seat of silk production. Here, however, he faced a new enemy that stopped him in his tracks. As soon as the Mongols left the dry and cold mountainous regions, both warriors and horses grew sick and weak. The Mongol bows, which were so well adapted to the extreme cold and heat of the steppe, weakened in the damp air and lost their accuracy. The Mongols were forced to fall back, and sustained massive casualties as they withdrew to the more familiar climate of Afghanistan. Despite this setback, they had succeeded in their goal of conquering the Khwarezm Empire, bringing Central Asia and much of the Middle East under Mongol control.
Dang, that's insane, man. But, yeah, often great men have a lot of family issues, I noticed. Like, great, conquerors or, leaders. Oftentimes they have a lot of family issues, I've noticed. And I guess that just kind of comes at the price that even great people can't do everything, right? And sometimes when you're trying to achieve something, you could easily neglect your own family. So, like I said, I know the Mongols last for many years after, Genghis, but, yeah, overall, just the situation seemed to ripe for civil war, and the heir being the carefree but also alcoholic third son doesn't seem like... Yeah, I could see, things going bad the moment he goes, right? But, yeah, overall, just... I'm interested in seeing where this all goes.
To celebrate, Genghis Khan called for a fete that ended up being the largest hunt in history. His men cordoned off a massive area of territory, and tens of thousands of soldiers from different armies converged on the field from different directions. The hunt lasted for months, and was intended as more than a celebration. Genghis Khan also wanted to use it to mellow relations between his sons, and to end the campaign on a cooperative note. Upon returning home, the victorious Mongol army saw the fruits of their conquest. The nation had been utterly transformed. Girls who had spent their days milking goats and yaks were now wearing silk, while their new servants performed menial labor for them. Elders who had never seen metal in their lives now cut meat with Damascus steel, girded with ivory hilts. They served yak's milk from silver bowls while their musicians sang to them. But Genghis Khan was not built for this life. He didn't want to stop conquering, or maybe he couldn't stop conquering. He set out once again to campaign against the Tungut, the very first foreign nation he had conquered after his election as Great Khan. The Tungut had refused to offer troops for the Khwarezm invasion, a slight that could not stand, and establishing a base in the Tungut kingdom would offer a second chance at the Sung dynasty, a target he still coveted. And that is where Genghis Khan's story very suddenly and very mysteriously ends. What happened next remains something of a mystery. Some say that while traversing the Gobi to fight the Tungut, Genghis Khan stopped to catch some wild horses and was thrown from his mount, sustaining internal injuries. Some legends say that he was assassinated by a sex worker, struck by lightning, poisoned, or killed by a magic spell cast by the Tangut king. Heck, Marco Polo even reports in his book chronicling his time in the court of Kublai Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, that the great Khan was killed after taking an arrow to the knee. All that we know for sure is that just before—
I was an adventurer like you before I took an arrow to the knee. Huh. That's it, huh? Just seems a little anticlimactic. No. Huh.
Before the Mongol victory over the Tangut, Genghis Khan died quietly. A procession would have set out towards Mongolia with Genghis Khan's body on a simple cart. His horsehair spirit banner would have led the way, and behind the procession would have followed his horse, with a loose bridle and an empty saddle. He was buried anonymously in the soil of his homeland, without a monument to mark his grave. Genghis Khan transformed Mongol warfare from a messy tribal raiding system into an intercontinental affair fought on multiple fronts across thousands of miles. His battlefield techniques made the heavily armored knights of medieval Europe obsolete, replacing them with disciplined cavalry moving in organized units.
Yeah, cavalry's OP, guys. Like, seriously, cavalry is just an OP thing. And, yeah, I will admit, like I said, his end, who knows how he went, but he seemed to have a happier end. Well, unless he was killed, then not, but, you know, compared to other conquerors, I suppose, but it's really just like, oh, he just went. But, yeah, it is amazing to see just how far, like, he took the Mongols, right, into just this, like, this great power on the earth, and just how far he did it all in one lifetime. It's just amazing. There's a lot to admire from him, you know?
He made brilliant use of speed and surprise on the battlefield, and perfected siege warfare to such a degree that he ended the era of walled cities. He taught his people to fight not only across incredible distances, but to sustain their campaigns over years, decades, and eventually over 3 generations of constant fighting.
Wow.
His last ruling descendant remained in power in Uzbekistan until he was deposed by the rising tide of the Soviet Revolution in 1920. Genghis Khan—
Dang, dude. Holy crap. Yeah, his legacy is just endured. Like, all in one man did all that. Just goes to show you, like I said, I don't know much about this man. I didn't, but so far this series has just been like, there's a lot to admire, you know?
Khan was also brutal. His goals were achieved through the deaths of millions. The Mongols made no technological breakthroughs, founded no new religions, wrote no great books or dramas, and offered the world no new crafts or methods of agriculture. They simply conquered and assimilated. And their tactics left parts of the world depopulated to this day. But the Mongols absolutely—
Yeah, I guess that's something bad. Like, you know, when we think about Rome, you know, it isn't the largest empire, but you could argue probably one of, if not the most influential, just by everything they left. You know, Rome's legacy, you can still see today. And though the Mongols obviously had the bigger landmass, you know, not to say they didn't change the world or leave a legacy, just, you know, obviously they didn't leave behind much, like, compared to other empires, you know?
Absolutely did change the world, and that was what young Temujin had desperately wanted from the very moment he first learned how harsh, violent, and unforgiving life could be. He eradicated torture, kidnapping, and raiding from his world, but at the cost of countless lives and entire cultures. Is peace bought with blood and maintained with force truly peace? It may be impossible to say whether Genghis Khan left the world better than he found it, but it was still undeniably changed.
And so yeah, I have to say I really like this 6-part series. I like learning about Genghis Khan, who is a conqueror that I did not know about at all. And yeah, a lot of death, obviously. And when I've heard about Genghis Khan, a lot of people kind of more or less associate him or judge him as evil. But I will say I do admire just how he took, you know, this almost like nomadic, tribe system that wasn't that well organized and just created this giant empire. It's just amazing. And I do like learning about the great conquerors of history, and he is another one that I'm very happy to have learned about. And this is an area of history, I guess, like Asia. We haven't covered Asia. Like, most of the videos on this channel have just been covering, Europe, essentially, Rome, and, France, and through Napoleon, and some of the Middle East, like with the, yeah, some of the Middle East. But overall, like, this has been a new ground to tread on, and I really liked it. Like, I really liked Extra History's presentation, and I really like the series. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everyone.